Creating combinations of animals means taking multiple image sources and bringing them together in a photo editor. So the first point is finding imagery to work with. So a couple points about doing that. If you're looking for something in particular, be specific. If I want a pelican instead of a bird, I'm going to search for a pelican. Another useful tip is that the better the resolution of your image, the easier it is actually to work with because your edges will be clearer instead of fuzzier. So if you go to Tools here, you can choose Size and choose Large, and that will provide you with larger image sizes. The other thing that's worth doing when you're looking at this kind of thing is to choose your picture that you want. And when you are looking at it, it's a good idea to control click on it or two-finger click on it so that you can open image in a new tab. When you do that, it's going to bring you most likely to just a single picture and its own resource. Now, Pixlr can open up a URL, but I would advise for this project, just to avoid it throwing up errors, to save the picture itself, and that's control click again and choose Save Image As. This is just making sure that we save the actual full-size image. And then choose where you would like to save it to. If you have no options regarding that, it's going to go straight into your downloads folder. So there we go. So the first thing that I did was I opened up an image. The first image I'm going to use. I would pick one image as your base image to work with. So here's my base image I'm going to work with, and I'm going to replace the head of this lizard with a pelican's head to join those two animals together. The other thing I want to do is I want this one facing the other way. So I am going to choose my Arrange tool. And I'm trying to move this and flip it, but you'll notice that none of my usual controls are showing up. And it is because this layer is locked. It's even telling us here, layer is locked. Unlock to enable transforms. Make sure if you're having trouble, more often than not, most programs are trying to communicate with you what probably is the issue. So I can unlock it. Ta-da! There it is. I also could have unlocked it on the layer here where it says unlock or locked, or I could have double clicked on the lock icon over here. All I want to do this one is I want to flip it. And his face is really close to the edge here. And that's not going to leave me much room if I put a pelican's head on it for the beak. So I'm also going to drag this to the side a bit, just so I've got some extra room. And how far? I don't know, I'm going to go about as far as I can without clipping off the tail. That's giving me a little bit extra room to work with. Then what I have to deal with is that I've got this empty space here now, and I need to fill that in and blend it with the rest of it. And the way I'm going to do that is with my layer selected, I'm going to use the clone stamp tool here. And I want to choose my source and I want to paint. I also want to choose my brush size, and right now it's set to source. If I set it to paint, I can see how big my brush is. This is pretty good. I kind of want to be able to fill that space pretty quick. My source, when I'm using source, is letting me choose where I'm painting from. So I'm just going to click to the side here, and then I'm going to click now that it's on paint into this space, and I'm just kind of painting that in. And then you can always switch between source and paint by pressing shift. So I'm just going to kind of keep changing that a bit. So now I'm finished blending this in and filling that space in using the clone tool. The next thing I want to do if I'm adding the pelican's head is I want to get the pelican's head in here. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to go to Layer and Add Image as Layer. And then I need to select the image that I want to work with. That's brought it in. And first thing I'm going to do this is I am going to cut it out. There's no two ways about this. The best way to do this is to carefully cut it out. I like to do a decent job, kind of being fairly careful, not going very, very fast, but not being super precise either. And then clean that up. So I'm just working my way around, and if I get a little wiggle, if I don't quite get what I want, That's okay, I can easily clean that up in just a minute. I might also here kind of grab that because I need to now move, and just using spacebar to drag so I can get this neck too. Now I just need to start selecting here so I can add this to my mask. The more you're zoomed in, the easier it can be to clean these up. And so that's really my trick for moving on. I'm going to invert my mask so that now I have just this head, and I'm going to keep working on it. Now I'm going to zoom in even further, and I'm going to be removing from the mask, I think. Yeah. Now I'm just going to do a more careful job tracing around these shapes. And then I can go even closer. Here it's very convenient because I can see the blue of where it isn't my pelican. And there's just no shortcut to this. To do a really fine edge selection to make it look really good means to take the time to go in and carve out a very, very careful selection. And that's all there is to that. Well, there. Now that that's been carefully cut out, I can start working with it and trying to tweak it into position and size it in a way that makes sense. It may need to be shrunk down a bit. Looks like it. Size it. Work it into position. That's probably about right. And zoom in a little bit. I can use the arrow keys to tweak it one pixel at a time if I like. Kind of like it about there. Now, what to do about the lizard's head? Well, same thing we did about the rest of the lizard. Let's get rid of it. Let's paint it out. I have the background selected. I'm going to use the clone stamp tool, and I'm going to select a source, and I'm going to paint it out. And then it's a matter of blending in the pelican. So there's a couple different things to do to help that work. One is just feathering out this edge where it transitions from one into the other. And I'm going to do that really just by erasing parts of it. I could do this a lot of different ways, but I'm just going to use the erase tool, and I'm going to use it with a nice soft setting. I need to make sure the pelican is selected, and then I'm just fuzz that out a little bit. And that's going to make it blend in with the lizard rather than just be straight cut from one end to the other. The other thing to do is, even if you do a really great selection around the edge, it doesn't really want to blend into the other picture, but then that's when blending comes in handy. So here I'm going to use the blur tool, and I'm just kind of running it along this edge. But you'll notice it's not really changing that edge, and that's because right now it's a mask. This is when you start to run up against limitations from masks. But luckily, if I go to my mask tool, I can actually tell it to extract mask as layer or convert mask to selection. But if I extract mask as layer, there we go. I've now got a copy of it that is no longer pretending to have anything to do with the original image. That's gone. this is just the piece that I cut out, and I'm just kind of lining that up how I want it. And we can see that if I use the blur on this edge, kind of fuzzes that out a little bit. That stops it from being such a sharp edge, and that kind of lets it blend into the layer underneath a little bit. Zoomed out, you can see that it kind of lessens that effect there. And anywhere you do that can be helpful. The other thing to do to finish it is maybe changing your colors to make it paint in a little bit. Another way to get there would be to adjust the hue and saturation. That's going to take that whole layer and do it. So here, as I slide this, I can slide through the rest of the color spectrum and find what I want. So I want something, I just want to send it a little bit more towards green so it kind of blends in with the green of the lizard. And that's going to have a much better effect. So blurring edges, erasing transitions, changing color structures. These are all different ways to really blend and unite images together.